I'm Abby.
I'm Allie.
We're the Rennick Twins, and this is Oops, I Arted, a part of the Hayden Collins Radio. Is it intelligent?
A part of the Hayden Collins Intelligence Syndicate.
Is this gonna stay in?
Yeah, we're rolling with it.
A part of the Hayden Collins Intelligence Syndicate.
All right, Abby. Today we're going to be talking about the one and only The Grateful Dead. But more specifically, we're going to be talking about The Grateful Dead and the acid tests.
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of our hippie friends and stuff are familiar with the acid test, but can you give us like a brief overview of what the acid tests were? Is that what this is going to be about?
Yes.
The acid tests?
Yes,
Okay.
and also I thought for some reason that you were going to say that our hippie friends might know who the Grateful Dead is, and that you wanted me to explain that, but you kind of took a different route.
They sell Grateful Dead shirts at Abercrombie and Fitch now, and American Eagle now, so
Yeah, but do they know?
it doesn't matter. It's a cool tie-dye shirt that they can wear to Coachella, bro.
Hey, we both have tie-dyed Grateful Dead shirts, okay?
Yeah, but we
used to watch the 5-hour VHS tape of the Grateful Dead live to fall asleep every night.
Yeah.
And good old Bob who, Abby?
My favorite member of the Grateful Dead is Bob Weir, but when I was young, I remember distinctly calling him Bob Weird. Bob Weird. And my dad thought it was the funniest thing ever, so he let me do it.
Yeah.
Didn't Dad also have an audiobook of the life of the Grateful Dead and the curse of the keyboard players and stuff like that? I could have sworn that we listened to something like that.
I feel like he did on tape or something. He also had, 20 plus Grateful Dead CDs.
Yeah, which isn't even half of the albums that they have.
But also, fun fact, the Grateful Dead, they hold the #1 spot for the most shows ever played.
Okay. Aren't the Ramones like second or close?
They're pretty close, yeah.
Okay.
But anyways, let's get started. So, the Grateful Dead was formerly known as the Warlocks, which I thought was not a very fitting name. But it consisted of good old Jerry Garcia, Bob Weir, Ron McKernan, which is Pigpen, the keyboardist, and then later on Phil Lesh. So these are all of the core members.
Okay.
And they were playing I listened to this great interview of Jerry Garcia, which if you ever get the time and you're bored, just look up Jerry Garcia's interviews because he has some absolutely insane stories. But he said that their manager was the same guy that was booking dog acts and magic tricks and stuff like that.
Okay.
So they were playing at what Jerry called divorcee bars. And they were playing 6 nights a week, 5 sets a night at these bars.
Wow.
Yes. And then this gentleman named Ken Casey, I'm gonna call him. It's Kesey.
Ken Kesey.
That name might sound familiar because he wrote The One That Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay.
Which has been adapted into a great film.
Yes.
But apparently this guy had many sides to him beyond the book. But anyways, this guy approaches them when they're playing at one of these bars and he's like, hey, I want to invite you to this party. Basically, it's called the acid tests.
Okay. So they threw parties?
But Jerry Garcia was like, oh, hey man, we'd love to, except we work 6 nights a week and your parties are on Saturdays and we work on Saturdays. And then they got fired.
How about that?
So they
Does
went...
it say why they got fired?
No. There's actually a really good blank on blank about this.
Yes.
Our good old trusty friend Blank on Blank.
I love that channel.
Which is where I got that. I love it because they use like actual interviews.
Yes.
And then they animate them. They were invited to play at the party. They had parties every Saturday. And it was Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters.
Yeah, the Merry Pranksters are very notable, especially in the book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test.
Yeah, they're the ones that had the parties.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently they would drive across the country in this tie-dye bus.
Yes, in the bus.
Did you know that Ken Kesey was a part of MK Ultra?
No.
Yeah.
What is MK Ultra?
Not the conspiracy mind control.
Okay,
Even
see,
though
that's what I was thinking about.
But that is what MK Ultra is still, Abby. I
Okay.
mean, the conspiracy does stem from research in the military. He was a part of the tests.
Okay.
The tests where they would give random people acid and just see what happens. That's what we were doing in the military at the time. Let me give you some date as well. So the first date of the acid tests was November 27th, 1965. That was the first party. And the Warlocks were scheduled to play, but they never ended up playing. They didn't bring any of their own instruments.
So that was almost 55 years ago.
Yes.
Quick math.
But the first night, they didn't go to play. They went to check out the scene, but they did end up picking up some of the Merry Pranksters' instruments and kind of fiddling around with them, and the reception was well. I have a quote from Phil Lesh, though. He lived long enough to write a book about his time with the Grateful Dead.
Cool.
In 2005, it's called Searching for Sound, My Life with the Grateful Dead, and he quoted saying, "We were at the first test not to play, but just to feel it out, and we hadn't brought any instruments or gear." And the parties were described as permissive bedlam, which I
Cool.
thought thought was a very good way to describe what was going on. And Jerry said something about the audience being a performance in itself. Like, all the people were there to either play music or art or this and that. So he said it was very different than any other show he'd done.
Yeah.
Where he's
they're
playing
all
for a crowd.
characters.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but was this when they started playing with the wall of sound?
We're gonna get into that.
Okay, cool. I was hoping we would.
That actually is a great segue. But first, let's talk about how the Grateful Dead got their name. Because at this point, they're still the Warlocks at the first party. So after the initial test, Jerry said he was at Phil Lesh's house, and he opened up a dictionary. This sounds very Dada.
Very Dada.
And there it was, the Grateful Dead. He said he saw it. I know, it's so strange.
But how?
He opened up the dictionary and there it was. I do not know. I do not question.
That is very Dada.
Yeah, which means tiny horse, but... So the Grateful Dead became the house band for the acid tests. And before we talk about the Wall of Sound and Mr. Owsley himself...
Okay.
I didn't know what the acid tests were. I was like, I feel like everyone just kind of knows. Well, I actually have a little bit of information on it. From Ken Kesey himself.
Was he the one running them?
Yeah, he was the guy that was in MK Ultra, and the story behind that was, and I don't know if this is true because this was a long time ago, and fact-checking these things is hard, but apparently he stole some acid from the military when he left the military, and he gave it to his friends.
Man, the 60s must have been a lot different than they are now.
After World War II, people were ending up with all kinds of crazy stuff.
Dude, I remember hearing about, I listened to a podcast episode on it, you could come home with landmines that hadn't been shot off yet and stuff in your bag after that. And they were like, well, maybe we shouldn't let everybody come home with their German guns and all of that.
Yeah, you're right. It was a different time. So if you wanted to bring home acid, I guess they weren't really doing an acid count at the end of the day. Anyways, these acid tests had these flyers that quote, they advertised, it just said, "Can you pass the acid test?" And I was like, okay, so what does this mean? Because it sounds like a big party where you pay $1 to trip and to listen to the Grateful Dead play for 2 to 5 hours.
Now, was this when they'd stick their thumb in it and lick it? Or is it
I couldn't find anything like that. I want to do a more in-depth episode on the acid tests specifically
if
when I read the Electric Kool-Aid acid test.
They'll let us do it.
Yeah, sorry in advance, Hayden. But anyways, I tried to find it because it just sounded like a big party, and all Kesey said was there were people who passed and people who didn't pass. And then he told the story about this businessman who came to one of the parties in a suit and tie with an umbrella, and they said that you could tell that he was really starting to trip, and they said that he stood up and he looked at his shadow and then he threw his umbrella over his shoulder and he said, "The king stands."
Did he pass?
Yes, he said he passed.
King stands.
I don't exactly understand the criteria to passing or failing, but I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that this guy had probably never done anything like this in his life, and today he decided
I guess it's whether or not you can handle yourself.
But people like good old HST, Hunter S. Thompson, attended these parties.
Yeah, he was on everything.
He introduced Kesey to the Hells Angels. But back to the Dead. So the Dead met a guy named Owsley Stanley III. That's his name.
His first name was Owsley?
It was Augusta, I'm pretty sure. Augusta Owsley Stanley.
Okay, that's quite a name.
Yes. He was a Berkeley student. And you know what he did, Abby? He dropped out and became one of the most prolific acid makers in the 1960s.
Yeah, he branded Grateful Dead acid, didn't he?
Yeah, he also funded the band. He loved the Grateful Dead.
I just remember reading, and they talked about how they had a big deep freezer and they only ate meat, and they lived in the house while the band was playing. He was working on the German pill machine.
Yeah, because it was very loud.
Yes,
we need to do an
acid
episode on
was
that.
Like dusting down from the ceiling, so they're literally tripping the whole time.
Yeah,
they couldn't even sleep.
Yeah,
and they were doing they were doing DMT to come down off the acid.
Hey man,
could you imagine?
Hey, I gotta sober up a little bit. But anyways, so they met at one of the acid tests. Owsley did, and Owsley not only funded the band, but he funded their acid use as well.
Yes, and
directly.
He took a leadership role and made them practice.
Cool facts. Owsley is the creator of the Wall of Sound, and one of the band members quoted saying something along the lines of, "This is exactly what Owsley's brain looks like, or what Owsley looks like on the inside." And Owsley was also, so he started off as the sound tech for the band, but I'm sure you guys know about the soundboard tapes or the soundboard files from the Grateful Dead, and that was Owsley's idea as well. He plugged a recorder directly into the soundboard, which is why we have all of those great audios of the Grateful Dead playing live. And Ken Kesey had this great interview, it's just called Ken Kesey Interview on YouTube. And he was talking about how people would go to these shows and they would listen to 5 hours of music just for that one moment. He said the one crack that would just make you feel incredible. Just something randomly that came about. He said the Grateful Dead was really great about feeling the crowd. He said the show in Portland was way different than the show in California.
Yes, and the Grateful Dead also never played the same set list, so you can name off the songs
The
of
first
the
3
concert
songs.
that
You
you
can
went
literally
to.
look it up in a book.
And yeah, and people can tell you, oh, well, that was in Atlanta in 1976 or whatever.
Yes.
Which I think is super, especially for having the most concerts.
Yeah, and another cool fact about Owsley is he is the one who coined the Steal Your Face.
Okay, the skull?
Yes.
13-pointed lightning bolt?
Yeah, so he was just putting it on their gear. And then they had a good artist friend. It was the guy who coined the Dancing Bears.
Okay.
And he said he didn't understand why they were called the Dancing Bears because it's more of a high march than a dance. And I was like, well, that is very specific, sir.
Yeah, nobody gets my joke. What do you do if you see a bear in the woods?
Play dead.
Yeah.
But you can find us on YouTube,
iTunes,
Google Play, Spotify, all at Oops I Arted. You can email us at oopsiartedpod@gmail.com.
And if you're looking for our new episodes, they're on the Hayden Collins radio program YouTube channel.
Please share, like, subscribe, show your friends, show your grandma, show your dog.
Yeah, your grandma might have some cool stories about her life in the 60s or something that she'd like to tell. Or your parents.
Yeah, maybe she was a bra burner. Who knows? And I got most of this information from YouTube interviews with Ken Kesey, Jerry Garcia, a couple Rolling Stone articles, some articles from Open Culture, and of course, the trusty Wikipedia. Also, if you're ever looking for extra information, Blank on Blank
is amazing.
Yeah, it is absolutely incredible, and I really just love going straight to the source and listening to people talk about their own experiences. And you'd be surprised how much of that you can find firsthand interviews of crazy stories with Jerry Garcia and Ken Kesey and stuff like that.
Okay.
But anyways, we'll keep you on your toes till next week because Abby never knows what she's gonna do.
What a surprise!
We'll see you guys later.
Bye.